Hi everybody, my name is Gerone Wright, and once again you're joining me on my YouTube Dronification channel. Okay, in this video, excuse me, I am going to be describing some interesting things about Mount Rushmore, about the sculptor who actually created it, and some interesting facts about the four presidents, or previous presidents that were actually being depicted here. Um, Let me see where I would like to start in this. Alright, first of all, let's talk about the presidents. You have George Washington, Theodore Roosevelt, Abraham Lincoln, and Thomas. Okay, um, Thomas Jefferson. I'm sorry. And each one of these individuals who managed to get their face and limelight here in the Black Hills, South Dakota, have a very interesting past, meaning that their religious values are somewhat out of the ordinary for that of what we would expect, but yet they all seem to be some type of way consistently linking in each one of these men here, meaning that their values of what they have is not geared towards Christianity, not in a sense of I don't know how to best word and describe this. It's just that they believed in a higher power, but none of them had this projection of a religious value. I mean, it's like they didn't incorporate it in their daily lives. And in fact, later that George Washington actually took and had himself almost in a deity type fashion in the in the Washington Capitol, in the dome there, where he actually had himself elevated to that of divine status. It's my position that each one of these presidents held a similar moral value as that of Washington, and there was something else about these guys, and that each one of these presidents, except for I think it was Theodore Roosevelt, all were the subjects or topic of being homosexual. There were rumors of there being homosexual acts. So three of these guys that are here have been suspected of being homosexual, being gay. And there's no report on, I guess it's well, hold on, let me get this right, on Theodore Roosevelt. Okay, but there's gay rumors on Abraham Lincoln, which is very popular, George Washington, and on Thomas Jefferson. Okay, so now this is very important, because now we have questionable religious values between all four men, and now three of the four. There's no confirmation of this, but their lives evolved around rumors of being homosexual. Now, the reason why I highlight this is because in what I found in my discoveries through my paranormal experience and encounter, that mankind's genes have been genetically altered. And in doing so, there's this cult-like ritual, this cult-like practice wherein such acts, such beliefs are an occurrence. So far, with my findings of just that and what I mentioned here, is consistent with that of my discoveries about there being genetic manipulation and altering, and such structures like this represent that of these guys are subjects contribution to the genetic altering of mankind, and therefore they portray themselves as being that of larger than life, or by those that know of their contribution to such cult-like practices. Okay? Now, let's go to the sculpture of this. Okay? Did I print anything out on the sculpture of this guy? Let me see what we got here. Bear with me for a minute, because there's a lot to actually go over here. All right, the sculptor of this monument is Gutson Berglium. All right, and he was born in the U.S. and in fact he lived in South Dakota. Okay, and he went to artist schools and things in Paris, and I mean, you can read his biography. And more interesting is the fact that he has a very interesting past. Prior to making these sculptures, I mean, here in the U.S., he actually made sculptures, and one in which he created in New York, in which was purchased. In fact, it was the first sculpture that was made of a religious image, a sculpting that had a religious significance to it, that was purchased by a church sect, and I don't have the information here, but it's there somewhere. Oh, it was purchased by the Cathedral of St. John. The Cathedral of St. John. Okay, and I don't have the information of where that actually is. But anyway, I tried to find that sculpture online that was purchased by them, because it's the only sculpture that was purchased by a living U.S. sculptor ever. Okay, so therefore you can see that there is some type of highlighted value in this sculpture. And he has made such sculptures, I mean, of saints and of religious nature, and he is of a Mormon belief. Okay, that's his religion, and his mother and father practiced polygamy. So here you have these statues now that are here of questionable religious moral backgrounds of these men. And then the person that actually sculpted this sculpture, or these sculptures, now having also a questionable religious background. Okay? Now, and I'm sure that if I dig deeper, there's a whole lot more to this than anything, because these sculptures are sculptors that actually become famous, that actually rise to the level of being able to be commissioned to do such artwork, has this higher knowledge of that of mankind's true origins and what is going on in reality in association with locations that such locations and these sculptures are created on, and that in the linking of our ancient ancestors that did similar sculptings, but therefore are not recognizable by us because you never knew who your true ancestors were. What is before us and what was taught to us is upside down with regards to what really occurred and what was happening. It's my position, before these heads got here, that there were other images, multidimensional images, that were created by our ancestors that inhabited these locations. And it's my position that most of our landscapes like this globally have a similar message and images that are appearing in the rock sides or cliff sides of these places, which some have actually worn off or gave way to erosion. And it's my position that our ancestors sculpted images in such locations like this prior to these images appearing. And it's my position that these sculptures were put here because there is also behind that a energy, a chemistry, a portal linking these locations with areas in space. And I know the reason why this is also. Now, if you take these images, if you take this location, and if you take this location, and if you look back in archived images of this location of Mount Rushmore, the further you go back into these archive images, you will see that the rocks surrounding the heads of the four depicted presidents have more of a shape to them, have a likeness in themselves of that of beings. Meaning, the further you go back, look at the archive images, and I don't have it here, but one of which is that the dedication to that of Mount Rushmore when it was an unveiling, and it was a 1941 image. I have it on my alien UFO site, where being away from the before the heads were actually pulled off of there, you could actually look at the rock side, and in fact a portion of it they had covered over, so you couldn't see it. But more so on the front here, which this here has eroded. In most of the images, the earlier on images and pictures of Mount Rushmore, they, even on television, if you notice, when this image is shown, they try their best in commercials, in advertisement, in all photography of this location. This front portion here is always seen to be cut out of the image. It's my position that beginning from here, going back, that there was a stone glyph, a megalithic stone glyph, that portrayed beings that ultimately calls for the likenesses of these beings here. And the sculptor knew this, and it's my position that there is a hidden knowledge that suppresses us from the truth, and I'm going to go into more detail about this. Here's one of the images here. Now this, I believe, is a mirrored image, but you can actually go and go back in the archive images. Go back as far as you can in these images. I think I went back to 1941 or so. Okay? But if you look at, it's my position that if you go back, you can actually see, it's my contention here, that this is an image of a winged being. This would be the wing attaching his head, eye socket. This is my position right here, that this is an image of a winged being. And they're multi-dimensional images that were created long before these guys came along and their images appeared here. And it's my position that in the proper resolution and distance, images other than the presidents or before they were there can be seen, because they are multi-dimensional images that are created on angles that on approach of these objects, these beings could be realized. It's my position that across the top of this mountain, Mount Rushmore, there are evolutionary faces of our ancestors that could be read. It's a glyph. And the further you go back, where less erosion had erased and what has been changed here and been altered, it can actually be realized what was actually there and the significance of why these 4 presidents' heads were there. So this is another link now, because there's other locations in Black Hills. I realize that all through Black Hills that similar scenarios have occurred. Now, thanks to a YouTube viewer of mine, that they informed me that this area is not the first location of choice. That the reason why this is the second location of choice for these presidents' head had to be created. The first location of choice was in South Dakota, and it was in Needles. Needles is a location where you have pillars, rock pillars, similar like this here. Okay? Now, the first person that suggested that was a historian, again, a person that lived in South Dakota. And that person, hold on, I'm going to give you the name in 1 minute. Was Gerone Robinson. Gerone Robinson. That's D-O-A-N-E. Gerone Robinson, I believe it is. Gerone Robinson. And that person had suggested that the location selected for these heads be in Needles, South Dakota. Now, what's very interesting about this is that to have the heads, first of all, immortalized or moralized in stone in these mountainsides, in this location, you must first understand. Now, their rationale for this is that for tourist attraction, a significant draw on the history of America, blase, blase, so forth and so with. When you read into this, but almost in the first start of my paranormal experience and encounter, I was drawn to Black Hills, South Dakota, for several reasons. But one was that I realized that there were images in the side of the mountains, and along with a lot of other things. If you haven't seen my Grand Canyon video, you must see it, because I mean, there are glyphs in the side of the mountainside there in the Vishnu portion of the Grand Canyon that I've discovered, and I put them online as well. Also in the ranges, in the peak ranges of Grand Canyon, where there's nothing supposed to have been, I found that there are evidence of monuments and ruins that I have also put on my in a video which you need to see, and all verifiable information, because it's a sequential order of how mankind was created out of this area, and it's in this area of Arizona and North and South America that mankind had evolved in a way that is previously unknown, and I know the order in which it was done. Now, why did they switch to this location? Well, they said that in some cases that it was too difficult for them to do anything, because it was the difficulty, the degree of difficulty. Now, it's my position that there are images in the rocks. I'm alleging that this is a winged being, and the further that you go back in the archived images, these images can be realized, not just there, but all through the rocks. in multidimensional form. And it's also my position in the 1941 dedication of Mount Rushmore, before they begun the heads, that they had actually veiled over a large portion of where these presidents' head would have gone to hide what was actually up underneath the rocks prior to them blasting. This is just my position now, because we don't know what was there being unveiled. But let me show you what I have found in needles that corroborate my story or my findings about such evidence existing of these beings that were before our time and not mentioned in our ancestry. First of all, here's a archived image. Again, go into the archived images of needles. Okay, go into the archived images, and I want to show you something. And I have a video here on that as well too. As you see here, I have the head circled. It's my position that this, I'm going to bring up, I have a closer images of some of these too, so I'm going to bring it up. It's my position that here in this pillar is one of our very first ancestors of the ape species, which was that of a reptilian ape. Right here, its image. This is an eye socket, long nose barrel, and it comes down to its mouth and its chin. The more over here is a more in likeness of our ape species, and in here. Now, I also found that there's something else about this image that is very shocking and very revealing. I'm going to bring up a closer image, and in here I'm telling you that there is almost seemingly an eyeball similar to that of what that Belgium character gave our presidents, and their eyes as looking real. The similar scenario is here in the eye socket of this ape-like species here. And I'm going to bring it in closer, and I'm going to highlight everything. Now, we have reptilian ape here. The likeness of reptilian ape here. The likeness of our knowledge of what an ape should appear like here. And then, guess, long and behold, this cannot be complete without the image of mankind. There's the image of man right there with his head pointed up. There's his chin, there's his mouth, there's his eye, and there's his eye. Now I'm going to bring these images in closer so you can actually get a look. Now this is in Needle, South Dakota. It's my position that is beyond coincidental that these sculptors, this Belgium character, is to his history of living in South Dakota, along with the historian that first selected this location, that lives in this area, and there already being our ancestral heads already there, and for them to come along and not choose this location, but it was considered, and move to another location that I found evidence of similar things, sculptings in the rocks, to create the heads of 4 presidents with questionable religious values, with questionable history altogether, and on top of that, this thing about this homosexuality and these genetic bridgings, I definitely linked George Washington to all of this. These cult-like rituals that take place, and it's based on everything from which we initially evolved. It's beyond the realms of being a coincidence that all of this has actually occurred, and it isn't occurring. Now, I want to bring these faces in closer because I'm going to bring up the reptilian ape first. This is on that first pillar that I said that there was a reptilian ape. Its mouth line is here, and it's almost like stitching in the rocks, and I highlighted it, that creates this creature's mouth. Here's over the nose area of this creature, and there's the chin in that rock pillar right there. Here's the cranial part of that creature. There would be the right eye socket, and there's the left eye socket, which completes the entire head of that reptilian ape right there. This is this being right here, over off to this side right there. Our first reptilian ape ancestor, its likeness there. Now, I've also discovered something similar in the Grand Canyon, and you can see my video on that topic. Okay, that's our first ape ancestor, the reptilian. Here is the likeness of this ape right here, which has multi-dimensional images right there in his face that I have circled. And I'm going to bring it in closer. Not only is there the face of that ape, and let me point it out for those of you that pretend like you can't see the ape. There's the ape's chin. There's the ape's mouth line. The wrinkles that are consistent with that of a monkey. And I wish I could bring up my chimpanzee right quick. In fact, hold on for 1 minute. I'm going to bring a chimpanzee up and show you. So there is no, yes, I do have it right there. I want to show you. Show you. You see those lines right there in that ape's mouth? You see that lip line there, people? This is in the mountainside right there. Let me remind you of what a monkey's mouth and face looks like. Those features are identical to that there and the lines. Let me show you. Look at the mouth in the rock side. The monkey's mouth. Look, people. Let me bring the chimpanzee back up again, our closest ancestor. Look at that. The identical mouth. And here we have the nostrils. Now remember when I told you that there was an eye that is almost, look at the shadow of this eye socket right here, and look at the shadow of the eye that is actually inside of here. This is eerily reminiscent of how this sculpture created the lifelike eyes a few miles away in that of the presidents of Mount Rushmore. Again, and this guy lived in the area of these ranges. Now, remember when I said that there were other multi-dimensional images here? Now, we all know that. Hold on. We all know. Look at this here, people. This monkey's face. Because this extra hanging skin all around here. You see that? You see all of this extra hanging skin around the monkey's face right there, over top of his cranial, over his forehead? Why do we have that right there? It's the same exact thing. Right in here. It's the same exact face. Look, people. You see that? The same exact face. Now, what you don't see is there is another multi-dimensional face that shares the eye with this being, and it's the face of a female who I dub as the mother of creation, right there, who appears always with the ape, the witch-like woman, right here in the right cheek of that being. This image is consistent with inscriptions that I have found in Leonardo da Vinci's work, Michelangelo's work, and in many of my other discoveries that I have so many that to list is amazing. But what's more fascinating about this, now this is a pillar. in Black Hills, South Dakota. Now the erosion is in. You have to go in archive images, people. I believe that this image actually even is still there. Evidence of it existing is still there. Now this is not no Photoshop. You see that monkey's face right there? There are archive images that can be revisited and pull up these images on which I'm showing you and pointing out to you now. That's the beauty in all of this. Tourists have been there. There will be park site, because this is an historical area now. There will be images of these. Photographers will have archive images that can be revisited, and these images can be pulled up and actually equated with that. Now, let me show you something that becomes more interesting. Now, I showed you the face of the ape and the monkey, which is identical to the lip lines and the face features of this guy right here. Okay? That area, this area here, this area right there, the entire face of the monkey is there, damn it. That's what it is. The lines, the mouth, and all. There's the monkey's face. Point blank, right there. Right here. Here's the monkey's face. Alright, there's the eye socket there. Now what's cool about this is that you notice this little patch right here. This little spot right there in the monkey. Right there. You see that? Right there in this monkey's face. Right here. Do you know what this monkey has? Another face. There's the mouth, there's the chin, there's the nose, and there is the right eye socket. It has a face in a face, showing you the ancestral faces of evolution, which calls for the likenesses of our kind. Multi-dimensional faces in a face. And this is what this is all about. This is what is symbolic of North and South America, people. Look. Look at this. The mouth, the lips. Look at how real those lips is. The nose, the eyes. Look at this. Absolutely amazing. Now, I didn't pull up I didn't bring this image in, I don't believe, close enough. I didn't do a highlight of this. But here, from this image, here, from this likeness right here, you see that? It shows us over here a more definitive image of that of a man. All of these pillars going across from the reptilian ancestor of the ape to the ape through multi-evolutionary phases of these beings. Look, it shows you that there is a likeness of man that emerged from that. It was very important that these beings project the image outwardly as to their evolutionary passage from which they evolved. This being wants you to know that it evolved from this being and these beings, and these beings want you to know that they evolved from these beings, and there are other multidimensional faces that are in here, and these images that now our presidents have actually sculpted into the side of the rocks are suggesting and stating the same exact thing. It's my position that each one of these presidents that were here that is memorialized in rock, their life contribution is to that of the genetic altering of mankind. And it's my position that their behaviors and their beliefs and not just religious values, but in their sexual values, in everything, in their taste for art, the art that they had, that they can be conclusively linked to a higher power and a higher knowledge and a suppressed knowledge that was kept from the masses. But yet these beings knew and they enjoyed that knowledge. Each one of these beings had something to do with the genetic altering of that of the American people and all those that they came in contact with it. And I can tell you that their history, in their history, there will be a reference of it. And wherever it is, I can find it. You know why? Because I am linked to all of this that I am bringing you. For so many years, these pillars have sat and been viewed, and no one has never realized that the ancestral faces of our ancestors have been there all along. Through my paranormal experience and encounter, not just this location, but every location, I do not even care if this face was erased altogether. Do you know that through the energy, the power and the energy that is here, I am drawn to it. I can draw on the shadow of what the face was. Even if this face was barely unrecognizable to you, I could still be drawn to that and see the face through my multidimensional sense of awareness, and through, it's almost like an animal instinct that I would know that the face was there and I could draw it. Even if it was transparent, you could barely see it. I am instinctively drawn to it and instinctively know that it is there. It's my position, people, that Mount Rushmore was a similar location and had sculptures in the rocks that were of faces created by our ancestors that came before these beings. And the faces that are depicted in Mount Rushmore are of ancestors that are not even known to you, but yet appear. Now, before I close this video out, I'm gonna tell you something more about these locations, such as Mount Rushmore and Needles. That is truly amazing. It's my position that I'm going to reveal for the first time that these locations are in a celestial alignment with that of areas in our solar system and space. And it's my position that there are portals, doorways, and I am 100% sure that these images that appear here can found to be exact, if not more conclusive in what they look like, because these images appear in color fashion, almost as if you're watching a television or a color photograph. They appear in space, in gas matter, in nebulae matter, and the informations from what occurred here in Needles at the time that these beings existed, or these beings were evolving, that information is stored, recorded, just outside of our world in gas nebulae matter. And it's not just here, it's for the continent of Africa, it's for all of these, for Egypt, for all of them. It's my position that as things are occurring in our world, it's being recorded in space, and I know how it's being done. There is a recording, not just in information, but in photographic images that appear in the nebulized gas matter, in color. And sure enough, as these beings appear here, they will appear also in space. So, our ancestors, in choosing a location to inhabit in our world, these locations were chosen for their specific nature and energy that was in correlation with that of space. And there's a record of it. Not just here where these locations are that I am connected to, but I can also link you to the area in space that these areas are linked to, because their images and their history, all which appear here, appears up there as well. My name is Gerone Wright. You're watching my Geronification channel. And some things you cannot see what I see. I mean, I could see a face absolutely here, which I don't in this case, people. I could see a face here, which I do see. But you may not see it. You may look at it and see just a rock. But one thing for sure and three things for certain. I know for 100% sure that you see that face, and that face. This is what I see when I look at these locations. There are locations in Alaska. There are places all globally where there are snow-covered mountains and all of this, where life has been previously, that are just now becoming exposed through the causes of global warming or lowering waters and all of that. People, you cannot see the faces because you know what you're seeing them through? The eyes that created this. Your vision is for the time that you are in. My vision has become that of a multidimensional vision, a multidimensional sense of awareness, and my vision is linking to that of our ancient ancestors that became before the sculptors that have done this. I can find this stuff globally in our world. A lot of it I can show you, you can see, because I could sit there and just draw it out for you and say, here is this here. And then you will see the pattern emerging of the faces. And you're stating, well, there's nothing there. How is he drawing these images? And all I'm doing is tracing over the lines. And then you seeing these almost like a dot to dot in a ancient text form or ancient creation form that you don't see, but I understand it, and I'm drawing faces out of nowhere. My position, people, is that these faces of our four presidents are not here by chance. It's my position that they can be linked to the genetic altering of that of the American people, possibly other people globally. I'm telling you that these men, whom are linked, except for one, to possible and rumors of being homosexual. Now that's too coincidental too, people. That's not I mean, come on now. How can three of these presidents who have made it to such a level of having their heads carved in stone in a larger life scenario, three of them be rumored to be homosexual? Having questionable religious values, and have created a bizarre scenario within their history of being, in their presidential history. Such a bizarre. It's my position that all of this is linked to the altering of the genetics of mankind, which furthers mankind's away from that of their ape and African ancestor, which calls for genetic bridgings over, of animals and of blacks and all of that. I mean, it's my position that from the behaviors, even George Washington, with him having his male sex companion with him at all times, I mean, it's my position that all of these things and behaviors of these guys can be realized and scrutinized in the way that in which I'm describing. And a new look into the reality of what these men actually knew can be visited in the way in which it should be. I'm telling you, people, that these places have more of a significant value than you could possibly ever imagine. And I can take this, unveil it for what it truly is, and bring the reality into focus and show you the correlation between our world and space and what is really actually happening. My name is Gerone Wright. You're watching my Geronification channel, and if you like my video, just share it. I have no end.